Excellent. We'll move right into items number 5, delegations. So we have 3 tonight, and we're going to start off with our MP, Eric Duncan. Eric, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff, and members of the public. Good to be here tonight with you. First time was the inauguration, now I'm coming to ask for money, so I don't know if I'm going to get another words. I tell people at the beginning of the presentation here tonight, I'm going to take my member hat off tonight here in my volunteer capacity of a local personal passion of the last couple of years. I will offer to say I'll do my council tour. I'm actually in the city of Cornwall tonight on another volunteer project of newspaper digitizations and doing a council delegation about the IRCC processing center, which you may have seen in the news the last little while impacting the city. But I'd make a commitment. I will put my MP back on here some night and come speak to you about a few of the different issues I know are impacting South Dundas. But I appreciate the time tonight to speak to you with an update on a past project and pitch a new project when it comes to local cenotaphs in South Dundas. So as I mentioned a few years ago when I was between political roles as mayor of North Dundas and before having the honor of elected as MP, I had the opportunity to visit a lot of community centers and different villages and hamlets, and over the years see the state, unfortunately the sad state many times, of some of the cenotaphs in our area. So a lot of times there's a struggle about who has responsibility for them. Local legions are trying to raise money to do their operations. Sometimes they're on municipal land. Sometimes they're involved with a cemetery, and sometimes it falls through the crack or cannot be easy to do. So very proud that in 2019 we had a committee, as you would likely have seen, the before and after of the Matilda Hall, and more recently last year a very successful project that came together quite well and quite quickly in the village of Iroquois. I want to thank that committee that helped on those two. You'd know all of the names, Darlene Riddell, Jim Locke, Archie Mellon, and Cindy Alt-Peters. We met several times. They were fantastic to work with, and were able to get both of those projects done on time and on budget. I'll speak a little bit about the successes we have later when I talk about next steps for council to consider, if you would. But that's all part of tonight to address another cenotaph in South Dundas that a new committee believes needs to be addressed, and I would call rectified or brought closure to, and that's the relocation of the Williamsburg cenotaph. So as you would know, and I believe may have seen from past council's discussions, it was previously located in front of the former municipal offices in Williamsburg, and at the time that the building was deemed surplus and transferred into private hands, for one reason or the other, the relocation, the closure, the decommissioning, any of that did not happen. Thankfully, last year, there's a new owner, privately owned, Sherry from Sherry's Store, and the condition of that cenotaph, as you can see on page 2 of the letter and report that I had provided, it had fallen into serious disrepair. The plaque was removed at the time the property was sold, but nothing else was really done to do that. What we have before you tonight is a new committee of folks from the Morseburg Legion and the community. The president of the Morseburg Legion, Steve as a volunteer and member of the Legion, Colligan, and Dave Lapierre from Williamsburg Recreation. And what we would like to do is finally bring some closure to this and relocate the cenotaph with some new pieces and upgrades over to the park located beside the library in the village. I know, having been on the other side, I'm not going to read my entire report to you. But what we have done is we've determined that we believe the best spot for it is just to the east of the library building. We could add an interlocking path that can go along there. We can have a new base with some limestone. We can reinstall the maple leaf piece that was on the original one with the plaque, and we could add solar lighting for the evening and 2 new flagpoles. We believe this would give it the proper relocation, the proper respect it deserves, and be a focal point for people accessing the park at different times throughout the year, but also a lot of people in the foot traffic that naturally happen at the library there in Williamsburg. What we did for a contractor, we worked with a contractor for Iroquois and Matilda Hall projects. The Morseburg Legion had indicated they have a great working relationship with Scott Hall, a local landscaping company who's done volunteer work with the Legion before. We worked with him. He's given us a quote that we believe is very reasonable within the industry standards, and he has the calendar this year with ourselves and our committee to complete this project in 2023. So all of that to say is that we are looking for council's support after reading the letter and seeing what we're looking to do to bring some closure to this issue that is long past due to be rectified. In terms of funding, the timing is difficult. As I've been to council before, we've tapped into Veterans Affairs Canada. Their deadline was last November. And so we weren't able to apply for funding. There's a few other sources that may be able to get 50% or a portion of it covered. But my suggestion would be, in our committee strong recommendation is, we've known it's been a challenge for a few years. Let's commit in 2023 to making the relocation and rededication finally happen, and have that done better late than never. So we're estimating the project to be between $10,000 and $15,000. There is that flexibility as we're waiting on some final numbers on flagpoles, some in-kind donations, and a few of the others. But we would ask council to consider that request. If we're able to get some donations towards it, council's commitment would be less, and that again would allow us to complete the project this year. We have a great working relationship with staff in the past of approving the project in principle from council, creating a financial commitment, allowing the banking to go to municipalities so we save on the HST. David has been fantastic, particularly in our Iroquois project where he was involved with, seamlessly to go through, great to work with, all the contractors, the timing and everything on site, and we believe we can do that again and replicate that here. The last thing I'll mention to council as a note in the letter that I had provided was a request number 5, which is a bit different, is the creation of a South Dundas Cenotaph Reserve. So Lachlan and I were just kind of crunching some numbers and confirming that but we do have a surplus from the Iroquois project that we would like to see transferred into a reserve specifically to go towards future maintenance costs at Matilda, in Iroquois, in Williamsburg, or any other projects that happen in future years. I'm going to say right now the surplus is around $10,000. Jim Locke is still busy taking in brick donations and getting that all coordinated, but we believe the number would be safe to say around $10,000. What would happen in the future? I think this would help this council, future councils, and future staff. If a solar light is broken, if a brick becomes cracked, if it's a little bit worn and needs some cleaning, we don't need to go to council or to the Legion or to a group and decide. We've got this reserve that we can tap into right away, keep it maintained, and I think actually extend the longevity and life of both those projects. Even the epoxy sand that could be used and redone every couple of years would go a long way. So we'll leave to council's consideration this Williamsburg project and also the creation of that reserve that I think will help us in the years to come keep what we have been proud to install the last couple of years. With that, knowing you have a busy agenda, I will turn it back to Mr. Mayor and happy to address any questions or comments you have.
Well, thank you, Mr. Duncan. Appreciate your explanations. Truly support both projects, both initiatives, but I'll open it up for questions or comments from my council team. Deputy Mayor?
Just a quick question. You referenced that in the past cenotaphs we've did a financial. Do we have that number handy?
Deputy?
Through you, Mayor, Broad to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. So the Iroquois, I believe, was $15,000. Which was the first project, was about, I think, $5,000 to $10,000, and there was some in-kind, I think, as part of that as well.
The same, what we did in the partnership at Matilda Hall was we redid the walkway leading up to the hall, which wasn't really part of the cenotaph. We're adding all this nice interlock. The asphalt looked a little rough, so we extended that and rec through their budget added to the project through a different line. So again, the partnership worked both times very well.
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation, Eric. I think it is a worthwhile project. I know we're coming up to budget. We're trying to finalize the budget within the next week. So, I would like to really this council to consider this donation as part of our budget. So appreciate that.
You also could consider the assets from the sale of the building. Probably should have used at that time to clear that, so we could think about it in that. In that way, and to start the reserve, there's already money coming in, so we can start the reserve, and then coming into next year's budget, think about a small contribution every year going forward to maintain those, which we should do because maintenance costs are a lot cheaper than redoing reconstruction. So, any other questions or comments? Councillor Smith?
Mayor Broad to Mr. Duncan. Just to play devil's advocate here, could we use some of the leftover money from Iroquois to fund part of the Williamsburg one, or just Just a thought.
So our thought on that was, where we looked, we got the money from in terms of the brick sale, our thought was of creating this reserve at least to have that to, for that future maintenance thing. So this will kind of solve, I think, two birds with one stone. I think the new request, and to the comment that was just made, I spoke to Lachlan and Shannon about this, of using that building reserve fund of when the building was sold, likely part of that expense at that time should have gone to clarify and relocate this. My preference was to keep that reserve in there, and I think in future years when we need those things, this is going to avoid council coming back or seeing something in later disrepair. Our whole idea is to keep that general reserve. We didn't in Matilda, we had a bit of a surplus, would have had a bit of surplus, because we didn't fully use the EDP donation at that time. In retrospect, I would have loved to got the full thing and created a beginning reserve there to have that. But I just think this, if we have that in that general reserve, this is going to help us in future years when we're going and touch a few things.
Yeah, and I think also, we have that reserve set up, and associations that know about it, they may want to contribute to it, a Legion or a Will or something like that, as a family members that are involved, like yourself's family, could make donations to that reserve for the upkeep long-term of that. So having that known would be a good fact for sure.
And I smile and I'm a bit chuckling, is that the Morrisburg Legion's been great on this, and I went to the general and got unanimous support from the membership and so forth, and I'm smiling because my work here won't be done. I will be presenting to you this fall about likely redoing something in the village of Morrisburg in front of the Justice Building. I know the flagpoles were replaced, but there was a desire when the Legion was there, and I was like, interest in this, and they said, well, what do you think about that? And I will add it to the list, and that committee that we have working here will get this underway. But that's another one as well that could use, I think, a generational upgrade and modernization that we'll work on over the course of the year. So I said we start that reserve. There may be other ones that we'll tap into and enhance, and then have that reserve, I think, there to, I think there'll be multiple over future years that we can help keep the maintenance up on and make sure we keep them in good shape. So
Excellent.
forewarning, I'll come back as MP for a delegation. I'll be back again this fall. You'll be sick of me by the end of the year. The rate we're going. So.
Enjoy having you and your expertise in these areas for sure, and helping us in these matters. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Send you on your next meeting.
Thank you very much. I'll be able to drive illegally, I think, now by so I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 5B, which our MPP is here, Nolan Quinn. Thanks for coming tonight, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. Raise this up somehow. Push it closer. There we go. Hopefully you can hear me. So this would be my first delegation that I've actually been part of, so hopefully bear with me on this one. Good evening, and thank you for the invitation to be here. Congratulations on your new roles on council in South Dundas. Clearly South Dundas is in good hands over the next 4 years. I recently saw your first budget deliberations were successful. There seems to be a bit of work left to do, as you were just chatting about finalizing that this week. But I'm sure your staff will do the best to deliver on what you've been working hard to achieve. So Ontario and the municipalities have a special relationship, and probably the most important, given especially what your most recent meeting is covering, funding. I'm in a similar position as all of you, as I mentioned. I am new to politics and won't pretend to be a municipal expert like my predecessor, MPP Jim McDonnell, or my counterpart that's here this evening, MP Eric Duncan. When it comes to the funding structure, I'll default to Treasurer McDonald, but the high-level view of funding includes the OMPF, gas tax, funding programs for special projects, as well as capital investment support and Infrastructure Ontario loans. I'm going to touch a little bit upon Bill 23, just because obviously the conversation in the media right now. So Bill 23, Ontario's plan to build more homes faster act. Ontario's population, as we're all aware, is growing by about 300,000 people each year, and we can expect to grow even more annually, given the federal immigration targets that have been announced. Over the last 30 years, Ontario has been building an average of 70,000 homes annually, leaving Ontario with a severe housing shortage, directly affecting home ownership and prices. Housing Affordability Task Force and the University of Ottawa has estimated that we need to build 1.5 million homes, as I'm sure you have all heard in the media over the last couple months, by 2031, a goal of about 150,000 homes per year. That was before the federal immigration targets have increased to the 500,000 per year that they're looking for over the next few years. So that 1.5 million homes is probably realistically 2 million at this point. For context, the last time 150,000 homes were built was in the 80s. Last year we built about 120,000. I think I was 4 years old the last time we built over 100,000 homes. Like I'd mentioned, it was about 70,000 consistently on average per year, so we definitely have a deficit that we need to fill, and that's where Bill 23 is coming into place. Dozens of actions have been included in Bill 23. For example, this one is exciting, especially in the bigger cities, as a right of zoning for up to 3 units per lot in most residential areas. So that'd be the main living quarters, a basement apartment, and then a garage or a nanny suite as well on that one. And that one is more for the city centers that they're looking for, but it is open to the rest of the province, but specifically downtown Toronto, so we can intensify in the specific areas, make it more dense. We've eliminated some fees and charges on affordable housing, i.e. the exemption from development charges for creating affordable and attainable residential units for non-profit housing developments, case in point, Habitat for Humanity. Increase in the non-resident speculation tax rate. This will help deter non-resident investors from speculating in our housing market, which has happening over the last 5 to 10 years. And then supporting density around major transit hubs, specifically again in the GTA, Niagara region, and Hamilton. Some of the plots of land that have gone back into the market are directly located across the road from planned. So all the infrastructure's there. It's not like this is in the middle of the forest that we're deciding to build. It's all directly related or directly associated with infrastructure, whether it's transit, water, sewer, in that regard in the GTA. So I'll go over some of the the questions that are out there. Taxes will go up more or no more development charges. That is false. Ultimately, development charges are only being eliminated for affordable and inclusionary zoning units, not-for-profit housing and select attainable housing units, with 25% reduction for purpose-built rentals. For most other homes, Bill 23 simply limits the rate at which cities can raise development charges. Currently in the GTA, specifically downtown Toronto, there's roughly 117,000 added to each in development charges. So the development charges in the GTA have been skyrocketing with not slowing down, and that's why we were putting a freeze on it specifically for the GTA area. Bill 23 will kill the Greenbelt is another thing that's out there. Only land, as I mentioned, adjacent to services, transit, existing housing will be considered for removal, and there's a strict deadline to develop these properties. They have to do it within 2 years, or else they're going to be pulled back into the Greenbelt. If work is not being completed, it will return to the Greenbelt. We are actually expanding the Greenbelt by about 2,000 acres. So even though we are going into it for about 7,300 acres, we're adding 9,300 into it. So it's a swap of land that in the past hadn't happened. It was just land taken out, so we are actually adding some to it. Conservation authorities, and I think that's a conversation around our end of the province. They're losing all say. Technically, that's not correct. A few changes have been made to keep conservation authorities on task with their mandate. Conservation authorities, when they were introduced, were all about flooding mitigation, and with regards to the hurricane that hit Toronto, I think it was in the 60s. And specifically, there are some conservation authorities in the GTA that ended their role, and we're just bringing them back to their mandate. So they're being the be-all, end-all for specific services. Duplication of services. So ultimately, we've met with both conservation authorities in this area, both South Nation Conservation, which did have some concerns which we relayed to the minister, as well as the Raisin Region Conservation Authority, which didn't have as many concerns as South Nation because I believe they are closer to the mandate, but they still had some concerns as well, which we did relay through to the minister involved with that. I'll just touch upon some of the local issues that we've been dealing with. Eric just mentioned it, the Asylum Claimant Processing Centre in the City of Cornwall. Obviously, that's been a big conversation in Eastern Ontario, specifically towards the lack of communication that has taken place from IRCC and all the local leadership. So obviously in the province, we're responsible for healthcare, human services, so Ontario Works, housing in that regard, and education, all of which will ultimately be affected or taxed given the recent increase or pressure on the services. My team and I have been working on the education side specifically. The Minister of Education was not aware of the asylum seekers being in Cornwall because of the lack of communication. So the school, Bridgewood, in the City of Cornwall had about 60 students that were there. And of those 60 students, about 90% couldn't speak any English. But again, if we're not aware of it happening, we can't necessarily step in to help or give give funding to it in that regard. So I have been in regular contact with the Minister of Education, but specifically what got the ball rolling on that one, my wife is a teacher as well, and we were at a party for some children, and there was a conversation about what was going on at Bridgewood with the 60 students, and there was a comment, DevCorps needs to stop what they're doing. And that's when I kind of listened in and heard what they're saying and chimed in with a little bit of the truth to the fact on that. So we set up a meeting with Upper Canada District School Board, because that's where the majority of the students are going. There are some going into the French stream as well, but it's majority looking for the English, and they were all at Bridgewood. Long story short, Ron Ferguson from Upper Canada District School Board, great to work with. We set up 2 classrooms on site. There's some issues with the busing, cultural issues. The parents have been with their children part of this caravan for 12 to 18 months that they've been with the family, and the children have not been separated at all. And in September, once they were in the school system, we realized that there was some challenges for the families there. So ultimately, 2 classrooms are on site. The Upper Canada District School Board acted quick on that one, so I commend them for how quickly they responded to that. And the children are getting the best possible education now, which is English education. We are basically hyper-focused on the English education, so that whenever they do have a final destination, whether it's in our region or in the Toronto area, they will be ahead on the English side. They were in the regular school board, learning geography, learning math, learning the history of Canada, and ultimately, majority of them couldn't speak any English at all. So it was challenging for the teachers, it was challenging for the current students, as well as the asylum students. So what was best for everyone was some programming that was on site. So if there's an issue during the day with one of the students, the parents are there as well. So just makes it a little bit easier for that challenge of being pulled away from your parents after a year to a year and a half. And I have young children myself, so I can understand that. After the pandemic kind of ended and they went back to school, it was a bit of a challenge on the children, especially my youngest, that she had not necessarily been to school without masks on. So that one we're pretty proud of. I've been meeting regularly with Cornwall Hospital. They have been dealing with the asylum seekers there as well. More on the mental health side. Again, as I implied with the caravan being 12 to 18 months, they've been traveling through the Americas. The mental health side, a specific aspect that Jeanette Spotty from the hospital has said that we need to put a bit more resources to. But she has been in regular meetings with IRCC, so the conversation around not everyone has been in contact with the IRC, that is correct. For some reason, policies have been left out of the whole conversation, and as was the education system. But the healthcare system, they didn't drop the ball on that one. They have been communicating regularly with our local hospital. So that's reassuring to me in that regard. So just in closing, we were chatting yesterday at breakfast. I was at the Iroquois breakfast, the mayor. Good Roads Ontario Conference is coming up in April. The deadline to submit a delegation request is Friday, March 17th at noon. And I do have just a copy here, but my EA, Sam McDonnell, from Gary, a great resource for me to have because I am so new. He just submitted a thing here. It's very straightforward. So if there's any questions, either myself or my office can help you with that. But I'm willing to take any questions or comments that you have.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing some of the work you're working on. And we're going to quickly want to brush off that we're all new and move into a lot more business as Ontario comes all the way to Glengarry, right? So we'll keep working on that. But any questions, comments from my team? Can't let them off too easy. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to MPP Quinn, thank you for coming tonight. That was a lot of information to digest in 10 minutes. I'm sure once you leave, I'll have several questions. But basically, just thanks for coming. Thanks for the update.
Yeah, I want to touch more upon Bill 23. Obviously, that's a lot of chatter out there, the Conservation Authority. So I did throw out a lot of information. But at the same time, I'm new like you guys, so I'm enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
The learning curve is very steep, and there's no time to actually learn. So you just jump right into it. And I'm sure you're all aware of that as well around the table.
Great. I know it was your first delegation. You wanted to come and welcome us on as we're welcoming you into your role as well. So thanks for the time, and we'll get you back on our agenda when we have further questions. And I know we'll want to reach out and get any advice and help on our delegations we may be taking forward at Good Roads. So
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the question for you is I can zoom into council meetings because ultimately Monday nights I won't be in the riding too often. It worked out because we're not in session right now, but hopefully if you're willing, I would zoom in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we have the system all set up, so
Perfect.
love to
I
have you.
probably won't know how to work it, but we can try our best in that regard.
We'll send you a one-click link. Make it simple.
That's what I need. So, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. In our final delegation tonight, we have Simon Wu from Rideau St. Lawrence Distribution. So we'd like to welcome Simon. Simon and I are former P&G employees that are now in new worlds, new businesses. So welcome, Simon. Also joining us tonight is our representative on the board is John Allison. Welcome, John.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Really appreciate the time. Today, I hope to take a few minutes here and just orientate the council on what we do at Rideau St. Lawrence and what our partnership within the community of the local area is, so that you guys can be aware. And at the end, some questions and comments from you. All right, so what I plan to cover today, a little too much. All right, so we'll go through a little bit of background, our corporate structure of the board, the businesses that we operate within Rideau St. Lawrence Utilities, and our performance over the last 21 years, and the benefits of the local utility. So on the current screen here, you'll see the areas that we operate. We have 6 distinct locations. We're embedded in Hydro One territory. So we essentially get distribution from Hydro One and redistribute it out to the local communities. For South Dundas, we got obviously Williamsburg, Morrisburg, and Iroquois. But we operate along the St. Lawrence and also on the Rideau system all the way to Westport. So our RSL purpose, you'll see our vision is to enable vibrant communities, and our mission is to provide stable electricity and innovative services to deliver superior value to the communities that we serve. What you'll see in the image there is that we have 4 core businesses, with the main one on the left there is distributing electricity and hydro to the community. The second here is we do provide water and wastewater services to all 4 communities as well. And we also provide water tanks to 3 communities, and for a couple areas we do dark fiber. And these businesses have been in existence within RSL for the last 20 or so years. Now we're trying to venture out to a few new businesses. One is consulting. So within our electrical industry where we distribute electricity, there's about 50 LDCs, local distributors. And what we're doing is we're providing some of our customer information system capability, consulting services to some other LDCs as well. Separate to that, we're currently in the process of training our staff to become master electricians, and then they potentially doing some street lighting services for municipalities around our territory and beyond our territory within neighboring territories. And third, we're looking to reapply some of the other LDCs where they've done a model where they've rented out electric vehicle chargers. So we're moving to electrical vehicles, much like we do with hot water. We rent them out and charge a rental fee over long term. So these are 3 emerging businesses that we're looking to get into and we're exploring. Now in terms of our corporate structure, so you'll see that we're owned by these 5 entities, with South Dundas being a third of our shareholders, and you're currently represented by John Allison. And so within our Rideau St. Lawrence Holdings, we have 3 separate affiliate companies. So we got Rideau St. Lawrence Distribution, Rideau St. Lawrence Utilities, and Rideau St. Lawrence Services. And beside them, I've listed out where each company and what it does. So the distribution company does electricity distribution. The utilities companies does our hot water tanks as well as our water and wastewater services, while our Rideau St. Lawrence Services does our dark fiber services. In our board of directors, each shareholder has a representative on there. You can see that what we track is the skill sets, where we look for diverse skill sets in order to have good governance within Rideau St. Lawrence Utilities and Holdings, while having a diverse skill set also to generate profitability for our shareholders as well. You'll notice in Edwardsburg Cardinal, Randy Stitt is the recent replacement. That's new. Typically, the appointments of the directors happen at the AGM, which typically coincides with the summertime, July or August timing. That's the formal timing. Okay. Now let me get into our distribution business. So what I've listed on here is a sample of what a typical residential bill looks like. So in a typical residential bill, when we deliver hydro, there's many components. The first component up top, which is not highlighted, is there's two options to select. You can do time of use or tiered pricing, and that's what the left and right samples are. Now, the electricity in terms of kilowatt hours in either model, those are considered pass-through costs. In Ontario, we don't make, for residential customers, any margins on the electricity kilowatt hour usage. Okay, what we do make a portion of is under the delivery fee. So you'll see the delivery fees highlighted on this example. And so every year, the Ontario Energy Board, which regulates our business, they do a comparison in April of what the prices look like. So in 2022 of April, they distributed what RSL distribution fees are versus the Hydro One distribution fee. And you can see that it's $26.59 and versus $49.04. So over the course of the year for a residential customer and within our territory versus Hydro One, which surrounds us, the difference would add up to about $270 a year. And so that's one of the benefits of having us as having efficiency in what we do. Okay. For our water and wastewater services, we provide a few different categories of services in here. So we do billing collections, we do customer service, meter reading. In Cardinal, we do smart meter backbone. So this is where the hydro meters are using essentially satellites to be able to transfer information through collectors so that we don't need meter readers. And so what Cardinal's done is they use the water meters with the same modules to be able to use that same backbone so that it drives a little bit more efficiency. And then we have contracts with most of them. And so this is a great service, and this is something that we're continuing working on with Shannon on how we continue to modify and expand our services within this water and wastewater services. For hot water tank rentals, we do this within 3 municipalities. We do not do Westport, and the reason is that we tried that a few years back, and they have a little bit of hard water, and so what happens is the tanks of the hot water tanks don't last the service life that they're supposed to last, so it wasn't really a good deal on both sides, so we just decided to work out the rest of their contracts, but at the end of the day, not start anymore. But we do that for the 3 municipalities around here, and we have very good rates, much better than the competitors that are out there. For dark fiber, what dark fiber is essentially close proximity facilities that want to communicate without going through the internet, and so you have a much safer connection. So for Kriska, that's in Prescott, as well as the township of Edwardsburg and Cardinal, they have a dark fiber service which within some of their plants. And now this has been implemented years ago, and it's just something that the infrastructure is there, we maintain it, we service it, and that's it. All right. Within these 3 new services that we're expanding into and that we're looking in is the consulting one. We started the last year generating some revenue and continue to do so this year for our customer information system. For street lighting, as I talked about, we're going through some training right now. And we look to, perhaps for the second half of the year, be able to provide some of that service within the municipalities. And for EV chargers, we've looked at the model and reapplied. Having difficulty locating electrical partners. So in this business, for electrical vehicle chargers, we need to find electrical contractors that can go into homes and provide a standard quote to implement electric vehicle charging and then integrate that into the cost. So we're still looking around for partners at all municipalities to see if we can find that. And if we can find that, then we can start implementing that model. Okay. Let's get into some of the results. So for the municipality of South Dundas, there is a promissory note that got established 20 or so years ago. And so the total interest accumulated on that promissory note is just over $1 million. That's in total. The South Dundas portion is the majority because the promissory note is mostly of South Dundas. In 2021, it's about $35,000 that it generates. So that is an interest rate that does come in on a year-to-year basis. And it's been like that since I've been there and that I've looked into in the past. The next is from Rideau St. Lawrence. There is a dividend that gets generated on an annual basis. And you can see the accumulation of time over history of what that looks like. So for Rideau St. Lawrence overall, the overall net income has been $4.6 million, and the dividends over that course has been 2.4. So generally, the policy has been that dividends get distributed and some gets retained for whatever is necessary to operate, but that's been it. Now, the South Dundas portion of that is listed on there at 1.5 for net income and $820,000 for dividends. You can see what it was for 2021. Over the course of history, it's been gaining. The only year where dividends weren't given out was in 2020. That was due to the pandemic. And there was a decision based on the business factors and the pandemic factors to not distribute. But we look to continue to distribute dividends on a year-to-year basis and look to grow it year-to-year over the long term as well. All right. And my last slide, what I want to end off with is what are the benefits of having a local distribution company. So one is we're more responsive. So for developers that are here, they have the direct access to the executives within us. So I know, for example, for Savavier, that's the deal that closed. We had multiple meetings, talked about potential options, what the electricity infrastructure looks like here to help out with that. And that's one benefit compared to some of the bigger companies. For better service, we have direct customer access. So we do have direct customer access in 3 locations right now. So in Prescott, we have our main facilities where we have an office. In the Justice Building in Morrisburg, folks can access Nancy that's there. In Westport, we have a deal with the municipality. So they do take some cash payments for us and do some sign-ups. And so that's how we provide the services there. We're more efficient. We talked about the lower fees earlier in the presentation. But we also have these affiliate businesses, right? So for example, in the water, wastewater business, the hydro bills and the water, wastewater bills right on the same envelope, same bill, same customer service. So there's a lot of shared costs that occur when that happens. And also then we have the local economy, right? We have a local board, local staff, we have local spending, and that's just a very virtuous cycle that benefits the community. It really is a win-win, and so I think it's a great model that I've joined in the last year and a half, and I know you guys are jumping on board and getting to see as well, and I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Well, great. Well, thanks for coming tonight, Simon, and John for coming. I think it's a key revenue line in our budget items is to have this continued revenue, and obviously the dividends paid out is really important to all the municipalities involved, or the owners of the corporation. So appreciate all the hard work that the distribution does. But I'll open it up for questions and comments from the team. Deputy Mayor?
For you, Mayor Broad, thank you for the presentation. Very enlightening for sure. One of the things we're looking forward to is seeing what your streetlight expansion program is going to look like. I think we're in great need of having a company, one single company, maintain and install and do all of the one-stop shop streetlight work that we always seem to struggle finding electrical companies to be able to come out and service and to look after our street lighting, because we are in dire need of a lot of repairs and new street lights. So looking forward to seeing how it unfolds and how it can benefit us, and hopefully it's a cost benefit as well, and not going to be too expensive for us to take that program on, but really looking forward to something like that for sure.
Other questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
I got 3 minutes. Just a quick question. You mentioned the hot water heater rentals. You said that you could probably come in below competitors' prices. I'm just curious, like how much would you be talking, like dollar-wise per month or per quarter?
Yep.
Do you know offhand?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but we do have mainly 40-gallon electric tanks, and we have some 60 gallons. And there's a price difference of a couple dollars, but it's around $12 to $14, I think, within that range. In the past, $5 tanks and $10 tanks. And in this last year, we just raised the prices. We looked at the competitors such as Reliance and other companies, and they're around the $20 range is what they're charging. And so we raised some of our historic customers to about $12, but our new contracts are coming in around $18 or $19. And so still much more competitive than what some of the competitors would be charging.
I'm just curious.
Now, we're only doing electric hot water tanks, right? So some of the competitors are doing gas as well, which we're not doing.
Steve Garrity?
Just one thing to add to Deputy Mayor St. Pierre is we did actually use RSL for streetlights back 5-6 years ago, but then due to some legislative changes, they weren't able to supply a master electrician, and that kind of came off. So we're looking forward definitely to re-engaging that relationship again, and there's some synergies and some cost savings that can be from that. So we're looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Simon, you mentioned some of the challenges to get into those other emerging markets. Is there anything that we could be a help with? Is there any requests from us at this time, or any thoughts on that?
No, I work great with Shannon. I know for the hydro side, really, I come to a lot of councils, and I just mentioned that for developments right now, supply chain shortage is a real thing. So for transformers and for builders who want to come in, it's important to secure early on the transformers because we can help get them accelerated early on. And Shannon's great in helping us and giving us a heads up of what's coming so that we can work with the developers for that on the hydro side. For these other emerging businesses, for sure, it's for us is just getting that master electrician license that Shannon mentioned, and from there, then be working together with the staff to be able to get a contract that's beneficial for both sides. But thanks for offering. I'll be sure to reach out if there's anything you can help with. Yeah.
And to wrap it up, I do know we've heard from a couple developers that are quite pleased to work with Rideau St. Lawrence versus competition. So it's really great the work you are doing and trying to make it as easy for any developments to come in to get hydro as required. So thank you very much for coming. Thanks, John, for attending tonight, and we'll be in touch.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor Rod, for inviting us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, we'll move into action requests under 6A, operational plan for the South Dundas Regional Drinking Water. So CEO Garrity, and we have our manager of water, Villeneuve, are here to give us an update on the plan.
Certainly, thank you, Mayor and Council. If you have any technical questions, certainly Dennis is here tonight to answer any of those, but this is more just a housekeeping every 4 years with the new council. Under the operational plan, it is required for council to adopt the plan. As council will recall, back in mid-January, all council took the standard of care drinking water, which was about a 3-hour training program. So this is just following up under the Drinking Water Act that outlines our plan. Certainly, if council has any questions, we're more than here to have an answer. At the end of the day, council is the operator of the water plant, so everything kind of starts with council, and then staff and myself are here to hopefully guide council to the right decisions and ensuring we have safe drinking water for our residents. So as you will see on the signature page, it's got the mayor, myself, and Dennis, who are the signing authorities, but certainly it does come back to everyone here tonight. So if there's any questions, I can certainly answer them, or if there's any technical questions, Dennis is here to answer as well.
So having seen the plan, been able to read the plan, and obviously taking the training, as well as having an excellent tour of our facilities and meeting our staff, do we have any questions or comments tonight? I think everybody's done their homework and are on the same page. So I do have a motion that Council Municipality of South Dundas accept report CAO 2020-01 and authorize the endorsement of the operational plan for the South Dundas Regional Drinking Water, and that the Council of the Dundas Municipality approve the operational plan as presented. I have a mover, Councillor Ward, seconded by Smith. All in favor? Carried. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, number 6B, Macmillan Municipal Drain Assessment Schedule Update and Appointment. So we have Chris is here, as well as CEO Garrity to walk us through these details.
You can go through the report if you want. Yep. Go ahead.
Yep, okay, so the McMillan Municipal Drain have a request for maintenance on it. We've looked at the assessment schedule. It is severely out of date. Land use changes and severances, so we're recommending that we appoint the Shade Group to do a 76 to upgrade the assessment schedule.
Having the report. Is there any other comments you want to add or any questions? Deputy Mayor?
I'm glad to see that we're still advancing with the drain work. I know that's been a program that we started probably about 8 years ago, and taken it a lot serious lately. And the billing, it sounds like the billings are getting caught up as well, which again is something we started probably in 2014, 2015, catching up.
Yep.
Which is good. I'm particularly happy to see McMillan Drain on the list. I know that I believe most of these council was approached during the election campaign about a couple individuals about this McMillan Drain, so it's nice to see that you're moving forward with it. So, yeah, I mean, the report is very, very thorough, and it gives a pretty good outline of what the work is needed for the different drains and where we land on the schedules and whatnot. So, thank you for that.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we do have a motion that Monica Shade, VP of Engineering and Sales of Shade Group, be appointed by resolution as the engineer to prepare a new assessment schedule for the McMillan Municipal Drain under Section 76 of the Drainage Act. So moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Reno. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving to item 6C, tile drain loan request.
Okay, so we've received a request from Mr. Farlinger for it's a tile loan program through OMAFRA to a loan to cover the cost of his tile drainage. I do want to let council know that the applicant is in violation of a few rules. It is at your discretion if you want to accept this application. It has been done in the past. OMAFRA doesn't have any issues with it. They leave it up to council. I have done the inspection. I'm happy with what's been done and convinced that what has been done should be done. So it's in your hands now.
Maybe more specific, could you explain what violations were?
He was supposed to approach council with this application prior to the work being done.
So we're having a situation where the work was done and the application was filed.
Yeah.
And now it's before us to decide whether or not we approve the loan.
Yes.
Comments from council, questions? Deputy Mayor, City
Yeah,
Mayor.
through you, Mayor Broad. I mean, I really don't have much of an issue with this report. I guess my question is, were they just simply late? Did they not know? Did they just?
I
has this
believe
been
he's
a
known.
reoccurring event?
I believe he's known. I think he's used the program before, if I'm not mistaken. Why he didn't approach us ahead of time, I'm not sure.
Okay, but through you, Mayor Broad, it doesn't sound like, it just sounds like this might be a one-off for Mr. Fallinger, and that, hopefully next time he'll just be a little bit more proactive and just get his applications in.
Yeah, he is
So,
well aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue with it. It is what it is.
Yeah, Councillor Smith?
Mr. Mayor Broad, basically just a general question. How often does this tile program get used?
I can't be the one to answer that.
CEO Garrity?
I could probably, maybe a couple times a year, if that.
Okay.
It doesn't happen on
It's
a...
not very often.
Not a regular,
No, okay.
not a regular occurrence.
Okay.
And just if I may too, add a few things is, I think the main reason why you need prior approval under the tile drainage loan is because of the inspection piece. When we saw that at least Chris had the opportunity to inspect, yes, it's still wrong, but at least we were able at least to review the work that was being done. Chris did mention to me before the meeting that what we might look at doing in the future is actually sending a letter out to all the drainage contractors to let them know that if people do come to them, have them come to the municipality first before they do any work. And hopefully that will create that dialogue that we can get things done the proper way rather than backwards.
Just, maybe also, CEO Garrity, could you explain just how the loan process works? That we actually are the,
Yeah, so we're basically the loan right person. So basically the application will get approved by council tonight. It will get sent up to OMAFRA. OMAFRA then gives us the money where we then give it to the owner of the property. And then what we do is usually a 5-year loan, or it could be a 10-year.
10 years, yeah.
We invoice them based on the interest rate every year. If they do not pay it through accounts receivable, it gets added to their property taxes. So it's deemed as taxes. So we have an avenue to collect either way. The property does sell, then the loan comes due, and it gets all paid off.
yeah, I just want to make everybody
Yeah.
aware, we are the ones in the middle of
Correct.
the loan. So we are the biller and the collector of
Correct.
said loans.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
And that interest rate, that's on the annual rate, not on, it's not set up front for the 10-year period. It's on
Yes.
annual, adjusted annually.
No, it's set up by the term of the agreement. It's set by the province at that time for that term of the
I
loan,
believe it's
Okay.
it's a set 6%.
6%.
Okay, thank you,
okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. So through you to staff, I just was on the website today, just taking a peek, and while I'm not excusing the lack of, he has been through the tile drainage program before, so he should know to apply, but on the website, maybe we should just make that a little bit more clear, because we don't actually say that in our
Yeah.
verbiage, so if perhaps we could just add a little asterisk or something in there that it needs to be approved by council prior to the work being completed, then maybe we could combat some of that miscommunication that way.
Yeah, so my message in the inauguration was yes, and let's figure out how, right? So these are always one of these times, in the short span we've been here, we've seen a few of these already. So, residents circumventing or avoiding or trying to sidestep, and some people believe trying to deceive us in some ways. That's not the intention. So we really want folks to, there's laws, bylaws, rules, standards. People spend a lot of time managing, and they're helped to govern us, right? So I always have this quote, there's laws you like and there's laws you don't like, right? And the laws you like are the laws you like, and the laws you don't like are the laws you don't like, right? So keep that in mind. So just, we want to be a help, right? We want to make it easy for folks to get these. You like the laws you like, you don't like the laws you don't like, right? So regardless, it's like, yeah, we're here to help, right? Let's be part of the process. I think we're gonna have a motion come forward and accept this forward. So just let's try and help folks and be the right messaging and obviously and have the right scenario. So a motion to accept the application of the tile drainage loan program. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving along to 5D, Marina Finger Docks. Sole Source Repairs. We have Mr. Jansen here tonight. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council. So unfortunately, I'm here tonight with the finger dock repair, not exactly what I want to be here tonight. So a little background for you, the marina sort of has two portions to it. The walls, which aren't included in this report, obviously part of the original seaway, aren't going anywhere. The marina also operates off of 32, 34 finger docks. Unfortunately, over the blizzard on Christmas, an entire part of it dislodged and put us where we are here. So in the last month, since returning from Christmas, I've been trying to pull everything together to get all the information for this one. So we've managed to get a quote from Kehoe. I'm hoping to meet the insurance adjuster out there this week. They haven't confirmed a date yet, but we're slowly but surely trying to figure out those details. Unfortunately, I was trying to get that information into council for this report, but a little bit out of my control. But time is a factor here. The marina does open in about 2 months, and you're starting to be at the point where we got to start booking our contractors or you won't get one. So that's what this report's in front of you tonight for. It's to sole source Kehoe Marine to do the work on an emergency basis. Kehoe, obviously a reputable company around here. They've done work at almost every single marina, including ours. So a recommended contractor to keep it going. The last, obviously, item here is the financing of it. The marina does operate on a tight operational, just barely breaks even, tight deadline. So we're obviously missing a little bit of insurance information right now. So I put two options in there. If it comes back from the adjuster and it doesn't affect our premium very much, we'd go through insurance. That's what insurance is there for. Weather event, tree falls on your car, you're going to use insurance. That is, as much as it hurts, that's what it's there for. But obviously staff want the information from the insurance adjuster, which unfortunately I don't have quite yet. The other option is to put it against the bottom line and at the end of the year look at sort of borrowing from ourselves to slowly finance the project depending on what the exact profits at the marina are. I know we're budgeting about $10,000 this year in profits. I'm hoping that we're going to do what the campground did last year and have a better year than we expected. But that's the project, and if you guys have any questions, I'll happy to answer them.
Questions, comments for Director Jansen? Councillor Ward.
So thank you, Mayor. I just have a few. Some of them are comments and some of them are questions. So I've had the opportunity to speak to the director a little bit before the meeting, so I appreciate your response that you've given back to me on some of the information. One of the things I think, and I'm just bringing this up so council's also aware, is I've asked the quote to be broken out for the new dock. So A9 and A8 in the drawing is a new finger dock. The replacement of that, I just want to see that broken out. I do think, in my opinion is that the repair needs to be done, but I'm not certain that I feel that the finger dock needs to be replaced. And I'm just solely looking at that from a budget perspective. So if we can get the costs down and manage the repairs, I think we can manage without dock A9 and A8. So that's a comment, sorry, first. I apologize, more than a question. So I guess my question and to staff and something I hope that you can take back to this company maybe as well. So the guide rail project I know has been on the council table for 3 years. My concern and to staff is that if we continue to guard the guide rail in the state of disrepair and something does happen, it is our property, we are liable. So I guess I'd like to have an understanding of if we decide not to do this guide rail project and something happens, what, we're opening ourselves up for some things. So I want to make sure that, I guess I'll get to the question, I apologize, is can you please ask the insurance company when they're there what kind of liability we're open to without a non-functioning guide rail in place? So I apologize, I got to the point there. And then I guess my last question, it's to council more so than staff, is the marina, this is a bigger discussion maybe for a different day, but essentially the marina is borrowing from the tax base to increase its capital assets. And my question to council, and maybe for consideration on another day, and something that I think about frequently is that I'm not really sure we should be in the marina business. I do think that the campground has proved itself to be self-sufficient, so I don't have an issue with that business model, but I do have an issue with the marina's business model. I believe, maybe this is a question for staff, is this last year the first time it's broken even, or 2 years? How long has it been breaking even for? Not very long.
No. 2? Yeah.
So the last 2 years it's been breaking even, and in the past we have borrowed from the tax base to put in new docks. Twice. So just something for
Fair enough. Yeah,
council to think
sure.
about.
Absolutely. So I think the matter at hand, Deputy St. Pierre, do you have comments, questions?
Yeah, I do. Just on Councillor Ward's question about A9 and A8, or her comment, so would there be a demand to rent the slip?
So through you, Mayor, the finger docks currently, I think we have about a little over, it's hanging around 50% deposited or spoken for. And based on being there last year, there's a lot of, the wall is fully booked. There's not a spot, there's barely a foot left for somebody to get a boat in, unless you're tying up way down at the end. So any new people that we get in this year, the only thing that we have to offer is the finger docks. And last year we brought in about 6 or 7, 8 more boats into the finger docks. You know, people last minute forgot, or they're new to boating. So that's our new clientele are coming into the finger docks, and that only leaves, depending on, you know, we're almost at that point where we're only got 2 or 3 spots left. And obviously we don't want to rent out the entire marina seasonally. There's benefits to that, but then you also lose out on your transients, which if you have 4 transient spots and you can keep them 80%, 90% full, your revenue on those is 200, 300 times more than a seasonal spot. Just that's how the daily, monthly margins are set up. So obviously we want to make sure that we have the space to, if we can hit capacity, that's what we want. That's just regular practice. So I think we're at the point where it'd be very beneficial to have them.
Deputy Mayor?
Okay, so just to follow up, I do agree with Councillor Ward. I think we need to separate it out for what the actual repairs are versus what the new finger dock would be, so then we can have a discussion if we want to move forward with the second item. And knowing the other thing too, and knowing that we're going to try to finalize our budget hopefully next week, I do believe we should be bringing this to the budget. I'm not trying to be negative here. I think this should have been part of the budget, whether we were just giving it to us on the 3rd of February as part of it. I think that's where we really should have been discussing it, but I understand that it's a timing thing, David, and I understand it. So I think I'd like to defer this just until next week so we can make a decision, and if we can have the split out by next week on the estimate, then we can make some good decisions on whether or not what program we have to do if we're just doing the repairs in the nude, or the second part of it with the new finger docks, and it needs to be part of the budget. So that'd be my comment on that, Mayor Broad.
Comments? Councillor Smith?
My only thought is, if we're going to fix it, we're going to do it right the first time. I'm not a boater, so I'm not the best one to, but my only comment is do it right. We're going to do it right the first time. So we have to figure out what we're going to do, and we're going to do it right. That's my only comment.
Okay, so I think for the will of the council is to defer this to next week. Hopefully that's a timeline that we can still work with Keo. I know we're getting close. Potentially, if we expect to do work, C.O. Garrity?
Just one thing to follow up with council. Would you like us to bring back at a later date some discussion on the marina as far as the operations, to Councillor Ward's point? We did have discussion with the previous council about options of looking at contracting the services out to another third party to operate it. Is it something that council wants us to bring back, or is it something that I'll leave it up to council?
Councillor Ward?
I think from my perspective, it'd be good for this council to understand how the marina operates and the revenues it's anticipated to generate and what happens with those revenues. Bringing back the rates as well to look at, comparison. I'd like to see what other, like to Councillor Smith's point, I'm not a boater. I don't know what it costs to boat in other areas. So I would personally like to see that,
Yeah.
but I am.
We did see some of the items during our
Right.
first budget deliberation, but it's hard to ingest all of those at the same time and then start to realize, okay, the expenses forthcoming on that. Andrew?
So yeah, to add to CAO Garrity's points, I know the previous council, they had a 2-year operation plan that included rate increases. So I'd kind of recommend to this council that we follow through on that. I mean, we're 2 months away from this season starting.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we reach the end of that plan, that's the time to start the next review. Like after we finish this season, basically, we'll have gone through the 2 years that started last year and we're finishing this year. The other information that we'll add is the asset management plan is going to start coming in. So I think if we take the operations from the last 2 years where we've increased rates 20% plus the asset management plan and combine them together, I think it'll give staff and council a great overview of the future of the Iroquois Marina.
Yeah, I'd echo that to say that we would make a plan for 2024, and I think we all agree that would be the plan going forward. Okay, so I don't have a mover for the motion. So we'll defer.
Okay.
Okay, under bylaws. We have several, 7A, B, and C. We will cover off. So joining us tonight is Peter Young, our municipal planning consultant. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Mayor Broad, and thank you, Council. So the first bylaw in front of you is 2023-05. So you can see there's a lot here, kind of a triangular shape, right down the middle, and actually right through a shed. There's a road allowance that's owned by the municipality. So the first bylaw would be to close the road allowance. And then the second bylaw, 2023-06, is to enter into an easement agreement because to access this lot, you have to go through a road allowance as well. There's no frontage on County Road 31. So the second bylaw would allow for an easement agreement, and you'll notice in that easement agreement, in the second bylaw, there would still be provision for public access because there are farmers that use the unopened road allowance to get to the back. One other thing, just we had a typo in the legal description for the first bylaw, but that's been corrected. Signature.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Straightforward, and I think, as of the last council had already started to talk about this, so I think we just want to move ahead and execute. We have a motion, the bylaw number 2023-05 being a bylaw to stop, close, and dispose of portion of road allowance, be read and passed, and open council signed and sealed. You have a mover, Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Which we also have a motion for the easement at the same time. That bylaw number 2023-06 be a bylaw to authorize execution of easement agreement to be read and passed and open. Council signed and sealed. Mover for the motion. Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. So 7C, Cannabis Center Control Bylaw Extension.
Thank you, Mayor Broad and Council. As noted in the report, the municipality's zoning bylaw has certain rules and setbacks for cannabis facilities. Last year, during the previous council's term, there were 2 proposals received, and based on some of the feedback, the council passed an interim control bylaw. This was very common, actually, around Ontario, and 2 of the colleague municipalities in North Dundas and South Glengarry, North Granville, and several other municipalities in the area also want to take another look at their bylaw. And this happened with all of them as well. After a year goes by pretty fast, and with the election, we wanted to wait till the new council to look at this as well. So the interim control bylaw lasts up to 1 year, and then it can be extended. So you'll see what we're potentially looking at. So in terms of our neighbors, generally 150 meters is pretty standard in terms of North Granville, North Dundas, South Glengarry all have a similar, and North Glengarry, South Stormont, they all have a similar setback. But one thing that we'd look at is to define where these setbacks are measured from. So the previous bylaw just mentioned sensitive land uses. This would be specific to houses, to open space zones, to residential zones, make it a little bit easier to interpret. I would note actually both those 2 facilities would have been 0 meters away, like across the street from if it was using the potential definition. So I think even though the setback's being reduced, the definition and the definition of where the setbacks are measured from is a little more clear. So I think council's direction would be a little bit more clear in term when people want to reduce any setbacks. So the bylaw tonight would be to extend the interim control bylaw. Otherwise, it'll expire tomorrow. And we'll set a public meeting date as well with the municipal with the clerk's department and probably I'm going on vacation soon, so maybe in a month or 2, just so the public has opportunity to provide comments as well. But probably in a month or 2, we'll have a public meeting with setbacks similar to this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Young. Any questions or comments from the team? I think it's pretty straightforward, pretty descriptive. We're extending the current and for some updates, which is great. So I have a motion that the council extend the interim control bylaw for cannabis production facilities and that council direct staff to initiate a zoning bylaw amendment to revise provisions to the zoning bylaw relating to cannabis production facilities. A mover for the motion? Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Thank you,
Great, thank you.
Mr. Young, for coming tonight. Those 3 items. Thank you very much. Okay, consent agenda. We're items in our. Sorry. 7 bylaws of 7D. Revised art hanging policy. Mr. Jansen is back.
Thank you, council. So this one's just a older policy, a project that the Recreation Department's looking at bringing back, but the policy was from 2016. So just a few housekeeping changes, a few updates to new ways that we'd like to run the program a little bit different than the predecessors. So no major changes in there. Some minor things, moving it from 1 year to 2 year, expanding it from just this building to a few other buildings, but mostly just housekeeping items. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I do know when I was visiting the high school back in the fall, they were anxious to be able to display some of their art. Would that be available for some of the high school students?
Yes, so it's
Yeah.
open to anybody in that, so they'd be more than welcome and pick
Great.
their facility that they'd like it to be hung at.
Great. Yeah, I think that's they're really keen on doing some of those items. So definitely promote that with those artists, and then through the school as well would be really good. Their comments or questions? Oh, yes, of course.
That's key, that if they're at the high school, they may not necessarily be South Dundas residents, but if they attend one of our schools, can they still be applicable? Like, yeah, correct.
Yeah, I guess
So are
we
you
could
just-
have some leads in Elizabeth Kitley
South
or North Dundas. It'd be kind of close on that range.
Yeah.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, the artists who must be South Dundas residents or have a studio in South Dundas. If their studio is Seaway District High School, then their studio is in South Dundas.
Okay, perfect. Good. I just would hate to preclude them.
The answer was better than the question. Thank you. That was a good question, though. Did I have someone move bylaw number 2023-08, being a bylaw to revise policy number 2-7, South Dundas facility art display be read and passed, signed, and sealed in open council? Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. 7E, appointment of committees of council. So in our package and on input from the council team, we're going to establish boards and committees with the volunteers. It's a way for residents to provide input and make recommendations on matters that affect the entire community. So we rely on these volunteers and the council members to bring their diverse background and expertise to participate in these boards and committees. So that being said, we have these board and committees. There could be more added as we look at the recreation, as well as we would look at the Rideau St. Lawrence Board of Directors. So tonight we got some information from Simon, and then John was here as a representative. So now we get an idea of what that program entails and where they're going and some of the skill profiles they might be looking for. So we will move forward at some point to look to name the Board of Directors member to the Rideau St. Lawrence distribution. Are there any questions or comments? CEO Garrity, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think what we did with the bylaw was took all the information from discussions with council before and kind of put them on the matrix. So certainly if there's any errors or anything, this is the opportune time to do it. But certainly has been with any other committees is that this committee can reconvene every 2 years at the direction of council. It can be for the 4 years, whatever council decides on the makeup of the committee.
And with that being said, we will then, after this motion, we're getting close to be naming our committee members. As we've got more, we've been advertising the last few, reaching out to some folks, residents to get, so we're getting close to being able to fill those boards as well, so we can start meeting very soon on that. So, any questions or comments on the committees? So I have a motion that bylaw 2023-9 being a bylaw for the purpose of appointing members of council to board and committees for the term of council 2023-2026 be read and passed, signed, sealed, and open council. One mover, Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Consent agenda, so 6 items. That's in the package in the agenda. The liquid dust suppression results, senior community grant program, municipal drain update, building planning enforcement, the January statistics, South Nation conservation, community free tree days, and the Ontario Provincial Memorandum tragic event in Memphis, Tennessee. Any questions or comments we need to address? Seeing none, I have a motion that all the items listed under general consent action of the agenda be adopted as presented. A mover, Councillor Smith, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. So under item 9, draft memorandum, South Nation Conservation, South Dundas Butternut Tree Compensation Program. Sale Garrity.
Council, this is more for council's as well as any comments. As part of our last few purchase of sales at the industrial park, part of it, the condition is that we manage with South Nation Conservation the relocation of the butternut trees that we uncovered back in 2013, 2014. So these costs that you'll see in the schedules have all been part of the purchase and sale, so it's got no impact on our taxes or our rates. It's all sitting in a reserve and under our sale of asset reserve fund to use over the next 5 years. So the ministry requires that it needs to have an 80% survival rate. So what happens is whatever condition the butternut is determines how many new seedlings we have to plant. South Nation takes care of planting them, usually on their own property, so that they can water them and monitor them throughout the summer. We've got 5 years where we've got to maintain that 80% survival rate. So if we've got a few that are dying, we have to replant them and we have to continue on. So we took care of one about 2 years ago that met the 5 years, which was the initial piece. This is the piece that we sold beside the Sevilla property. I think it was about 4 acres. That was the ask. So that's what you see as far as the schedule tonight. In the spring, once the weather gets better, they will go out to the Sophia property. They'll do their monitoring, and then they'll come up with a cost analysis of what we need to do as far as replacement. So this is a part 1 of part of 2 that I'll be bringing back to council, but one, at least to make council aware that we are required to do this. And number 2, if council had any questions or concerns with anything within the agreement. So I'm more than happy to answer, but as I said, it's no cost to the ratepayers.
Questions, comments? Thanks for the information. That's great. Okay, item number 10, notice of motions. Any items councils like to bring forward, future meetings? Number 11, ratification bylaw, that bylaw 2023-10 be a bylaw to adopt, confirm, ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed, and open council, signed and sealed. Mover, Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. And a motion that now adjourn to meet at the call of the chair. Councillor Smith, Councillor Reno, all in favor? Thank you very much. So as we conclude the regular council meeting for the municipality for February 13th, I'd like to say thanks to the whole South Dundas team, those working parks, recreation, fire, emergency, water and wastewater, treasury, building bylaw, communications, transportation, customer service, admin. I'd also like to thank all the clubs and associations throughout our municipality that have been hosting events. I've been at many over the last week, as all of us may have been, having meetings, association meetings. It's great work those volunteers do, so I really appreciate it and thank them. We do have one announcement. We did do a media release earlier, and we'll see as of next week. We're pleased to announce that Miss Crystal LeBrun will be our municipal clerk, effective Tuesday, February 21st. Ms. LeBrun brings several years of experience from the municipal world. She's most recently been the deputy clerk in South Glengarry, so we're super excited, extremely happy to have her. It's an important municipal function, and we're confident Crystal's background will serve South Dundas well. So we're excited to have her start next week. So on behalf of the council team, I'd like to thank all the staff for preparing tonight's agenda, and to the council team for their work. Thanks to those that attend us. Thanks to our delegations. Simon Wu with Rideau St. Lawrence Distribution, Nolan Quinn, our MPP, and Eric Duncan, our MP. So until our next meeting, I call the chair.